Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, it is with great pleasure and honor that we gather here today to inaugurate a conference on the profound legacy of Roger Scruton. Allow me to extend a special welcome to Sophie Scruton, whose presence adds a deeply personal dimension to our discussions, filled with respect and love. As the head of the Hungarian Scruton Hub, I am immensely proud that you have all accepted our invitation to come together to discuss Roger Scruton's remarkable contributions. I trust that our conversations will be marked by both disagreement and constructive argumentation, reflecting the spirit of inquiry that Scruton himself so deeply valued. Scruton's insights penetrate to the core of social existence, exploring the interconnected realms of aesthetics, ethics, and metaphysics. He understood the vital importance of these domains as an integrated whole, warning against the danger of their fragmented in society. Proudly identifying as a conservative, he emphasized the centrality of beauty as a guiding value, recognizing its role in sustaining tradition and nurturing communal life. For those of us in Eastern Europe, Scruton's philosophy had a special allure precisely because it achieved normativity in favor of dialogue. His intention to our region was not merely academic. The failure of the solidarity movement shocked him into taking active steps for the region. So, to use a pun, his attention to us was rooted in solidarity, in his clandestine effort to support intellectuals and to bring true news about our region to the Western press. Today, we will delve into the significant outcomes of his clandestine underground endeavors in Poland and Czechoslovakia, striving to paint a comprehensive picture of his impact on our societies. From the outside, his journeys were like a spy novel. Friendships and loves were made, but he also encountered treachery and the political police. However, it was not his personal affairs that moved him, but compassion, the midlight. Scruton's vision extended beyond national borders, viewing Eastern Europe not as isolated entities, but as interconnected communities with shared destinies. His efforts helped us recognize our common concerns and foster a sense of collective purpose. Let us now embark on this journey of dialogue and discovery as we delve into the profound legacy of Roger Scruton. Together, let us honor his memory by engaging in rigorous debate and seeking deeper understanding. Welcome to our conference. And now, at that point, I would also like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Zsolt Német, Chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Hungarian Parliament, whose participation honors us greatly. I hope you all know our program, but I read you what will you participate on. After my opening words, you can listen to Sophie Scruton's speech. After, we won't have a coffee break, but there will be the first section, the Solidarity Krakow, the Solidarity. You can listen to Mr. Zsolt Német, to Mr. Marek Matrasek, and to Mr. Nick Zangvil. So you will hear some speeches, some lectures about politics, history, and culture. After, we will have a coffee break, and I hope you will like our very tasty and very special coffees upstairs. After the coffee break, we will have the Praha session, where you can listen to Mr. Techera, to Mr. Balázs Mezei, our spiritual director, and you can listen to my musicology's speech about Scruton's opera. After, we will have lunch. And we will have many time to speak and to rest. And after the lunch, there will be our Budapest section, when you can listen to the Professor Hörher, to Mr. Ahmed, and to the director, Mr. Mihály Rosonci Kovács. And the closing lecture will be said by Mr. Martin Fiala. So this is our program. You can follow us on the Facebook on stream, and if you need any paper with this program, you can just tell me and we will do it. And now it's time to start. So I now invite our key speaker, Sophie Scruton.
Hello, and thank you all for coming, and thank you so much for putting on this event to commemorate Roger's life and work and his connections with Central and Eastern Europe, which were so important to him. And thank you very much for inviting me to think about why Central and Eastern Europe made such an impact on Roger. And so I've been spending a little bit of time thinking about his writing and how much it was helped by the people he knew here and his activities here. The name of this conference is A Dove Descending, which is probably a nice image, nice memoriam image, and a nice image after Easter. That relates to this book of short stories that Roger wrote in 1991. It's a book of literature more than history, but there is a short story in it called The Seminar, which is clearly drawn from his experiences of visiting, I think, Prague and Brno, and conducting the seminars of the Underground University, of which you'll hear more later. So in this short story called The Seminar, first of all, it's a description of arriving in Prague and going, I think, moving from the airport sort of down through the countryside, through the suburbs, and ending up in the urban environment where he was due to meet friends and conduct the seminar. This journey, I think, forms for him clear views that he will take forward when he starts thinking about the city and urbanism and where people live. He talks about the blandness of the suburbs, which was unfortunately a result of the communist housing situation that people were living in and under. And obviously this is something that he will take up later when he's thinking about cities that should be more vibrant. But then, of course, he's very much drawn to the beauty of the architecture of the central part of the city. He's very... the hushed atmosphere is very alluring in a way to him. And the sort of sense of quietness of people it is obviously of great appeal. Well, I'll try and develop this later because, of course, it's mixed. Because it's also because there are possibly people listening to you, so you can't make too much noise. And obviously, that's something that the whole fight against communism was all about, to overcome that. And then, not actually in this story of the seminar, but it's a nice image in one of Roger's other books where he talks about the seminars, I think Gentle Regrets, an autobiographical book. He says that when he arrives, goes up the stairs, he finds the group collected, seem, quiet and hiding, as if maybe in an air raid situation. And then he walks into the room and he says, and I realised the air raid was me. So obviously he had some extraordinary experiences here. So this book, The Dove Descending, it was actually published a couple of years before I even met Roger, so I'm really not the expert to speak about this. But of course I did start to learn a great deal why Central and his experiences were so important here, and how it sort of gave him the work he wanted to do. I mean, obviously when he visited here, it's described, he saw a lot of slogans, communist slogans about freedom and the future and things like that. And he immediately wanted, he didn't want his life to have words in that didn't mean things and slogans. And so he then became, in his own academic situation, very cautious of people who sort of talked about futuristic ideologies that perhaps didn't have the sort of truth in them and were perhaps too closely connected to the sort of slogans of the communist days. And so, of course, if he came across it, he would fight back at that and try and fight for a true way of speaking. And, of course, the censorship. He experienced that here, and then, of course, would fight strongly for ensuring there was no censorship in Western academic institutions. And that sort of sounds easy, but I think he found that a struggle at times about what people are free to talk about. Obviously, Roger went on to write a lot about conservatism, and he wrote an important book called The Meaning of Conservatism, and then he went on to write other books about conservative principles and such like. And I think that he was able to draw on his experiences in Central and Eastern Europe, where some of the important aspects of conservatism, such as free association and a thriving civic society of little organisations, were the bedrock of conservatism. Now here, under the communist system, none of that was allowed. And he saw that people were somewhat bereft without it. And of course, the underground seminar was an informal way of creating that. And of course, people enjoyed it, they were inspired by it, and it was meaningful to them. So I think that he drew on this knowledge from here when he was writing about conservatism. And I think that would give it, it helped bring it out of the realm of theory and bring it into describing a real situation that people need. And I think that probably gives his work on conservatism more sort of form and a human aspect. And I think that's why when people read his writings on conservatism, they're drawn to it and they think, yes, that's how I feel. I want civic institutions and a civic society as the bedrock of our social cohesion, more than perhaps a top-down government situation. Also, a very important part of Roger's work was writing about the city and the urban environment. And of course, he had the sort of luck of seeing the sort of the sleeping cities of Central Europe and their beauty, beauty that was sort of hadn't been touched for a while, so that maybe in the centre there would be some wonderful things like the 19th century lamps and covers in the pavement for the down into the waterworks, you know, with the lovely emblems decorating the covers. And he was drawn to all those things, and he started to build up a theory of the city that had to be full of little gestures towards the human life that it was framing. So Roger became very interested in how you create a civic environment in which society can enjoy living and enjoy coming together in the public space. Yes, he became very interested in the public realm and how that should be a part of city life. The other thing that he noticed the absence of here when he would have visited would have been the sort of central force of a city, which is the market, and the opportunity for people to come together and buy and exchange goods, and to mix with a whole variety of people bringing those goods into the city, and the huge energy that creates. And of course, that is another area that he would have celebrated when he was writing about he and his friends were writing about how to create vibrant cities. Another area of his interest was the countryside, and he loved the countryside that he got to know in Moravia, thanks to his friend Mikin Poshpashil, who would take him there to stay at his traditional cottage. Obviously, visiting Moravia offered two contrasts. One, seeing the big state agriculture that was a legacy of the communist agricultural systems, and also seeing people farming the very small patch of land they had control over, and the huge productivity of that small patch of land, where the private family interest has so much value. And there is so much productivity in that small little bit of market gardening, if you like. He also learnt from these visits to the countryside some fun ways of living in a way that preserved everything. He loved to cook, and so our cupboards soon filled with pickled vegetables in a dill vinegar, which I'm pretty sure would be cooking recipes that he discovered here. And of course, the importance of good bread. I think Roger was 30 years ahead of the trend in the West for sourdough and rye bread, thanks to his time spent here. And of course, there are ways to remember the countryside that he enjoyed so much. And sometimes when the radio is playing at home and there's maybe music by Mahler or Dvorak or Janacek on the radio, I'm reminded of these lovely holidays that Roger had and that then he took me and the children on in Moravia. And I think this would have all fed into his sense that writing about the environment and how we can be a part of it was important. Okay, now the next bit is a little bit difficult. I think a philosopher will be needed to talk more about this. But another part of Roger's experience of Central Europe was how people had to live in secret, and people had to live behind. They couldn't say what they felt or knew. They had to be very careful, and how, except in one thing, which is the interpersonal relations and in love, you know, there was a chance for truth, perhaps. And Roger picks up on this through his through the imagination. So for Roger, it was very important that there was place for the imagination, and he felt that there was that here in Central and Eastern Europe, even with all the problems of living under communism. And then, of course, for Roger, he could use things he imagined as a source for his creative writing, for his literary writing. And I think that his time here probably had the biggest impact into his purely literary writing of fiction and music. And so, following on from A Dove Descending, he goes on to write a novel called Notes from Underground, and then an opera which is called Anna, or its original title was An Angel Passes, which is the story of the interpersonal relations between people, and where you can seek the real truth in those interpersonal relations. And then sort of finally, Roger obviously spent maybe 30 or more years engaged over here, and this was a long time to be working with people and working as things changed, as people, as the, you know, as communism fell, and as his friends started to assume new lives, new jobs, places in government, etc. But most of all, during that time, many friendships and love grew up among Roger's friends in this country, in Czech Republic and Poland. And I think that everybody gave Roger a strong sense of belonging over here. They found that his friendship was very valuable. What he'd gone on to write, as I've tried to say, it both drew from their experience and offered a way to take the next steps, perhaps, in creating that civic society that had been missing, and that was perhaps the foundation of government in the future. And so I think that this idea that Roger has of a love of home, or oikophilia, was also offered to him here by his friends, by people who were always encouraging and always supportive of what he was doing. And I think he was very grateful for that, especially as it became, as he got into difficult times in the West over some of the things that we talked about at the beginning about free speech and his place in the academic world. And I was just looking at some of Roger's diaries before coming over, and I found a diary entry from 2010 which records a conversation with Marek Matraszek, great friend who's come to stay at the farm frequently. And he says, in the evening we discussed what we hoped a revived European society in Central Europe would look like, one of real families, pious observance, and little platoons. So I think Roger would still look to this part of the world as a place where some of that is evident, and it would bring him happiness. Thank you very much.